Hey guys, you are about to watch a video that I recorded a while ago, and it was just a big project, and I kind of got intimidated from editing it all and everything. But so I want to let you know up front, this is a long video to go through all these cards and everything. By the time you see it, I may have split it up into multiple parts. I'm not really sure what the best thing to do with it is. I will let you know that, if you're not into sitting for the whole thing, hey, take it in pieces, watch a little bit. It gets really kind of fun towards the end. It really does. But just want to put it out there and let you guys know that you're either going to see this in 2 or 3 pieces, or just know that it's a long one. So I hope you enjoy.
Hey guys, I'm back, and I wanted to do this a little sooner, but I'm just getting to it. So a while ago, awesome dude Craig sent a cool box. We did an unboxing, and in it were some Desert Storm cards, and we talked about Desert Storm cards. This started when we had the Blue Creek Knives Knife Nerd Club box, and he had sent a package of Desert Storm cards. Is this baseball cards? Oh my god. I'm not even opening these. I was a kid. I was a little kid when these things came out. I feel like I should open them, but I'm not. These are actually... Are these... Is this even showing? This is so cool. And I mentioned how cool they were, and Craig one-upped, and he sent me two full boxes of Desert Storm cards. And I don't know if he realized how cool these boxes were, because he got me a full set of Series 1 and Series 2. We're going to talk about it. And I said I was going to do an unboxing, and we're going to talk about them. And those of you who have been with the channel for a while know my military background and how I'm kind of a geek. Yes, this is totally tooting my own horn, but literally an expert. They sent me to the schools to be expert level on certain things. I gotta say it. I have the patch and the badge and everything. But yeah, we're going to go through the cards. We're going to look at the cards because they are so vintage. I was 1991. I was in what, 7th grade? Yeah. But still coming from a long, proud military service family, I knew a lot even then. I was a geek. I grew up a geek. I'm still a geek. But these cards were really cool. And we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the cards, the state of the conflict of Desert Storm and how that kind of changed the country a little bit. We're going to talk about why these cards were cool and important and the propaganda value. And we're going to look at the cards. We are. Unfortunately, there are 3 sets of Desert Storm cards by Topps, and there's a couple other companies that made Desert Storm cards that just were never as popular. But I have a binder ready so we can properly store these cards. Now, I'll tell you right now, these are not worth a whole lot of money. They're not. They never were. They never gained that kind of, are baseball cards still worth a lot of money? I don't know. But they're not worth a whole lot. They're much more worth sentimental value than anything else. You can buy, so like for example, in the first series right here, Coalition for Peace, you can buy a complete set of 88 cards and 22 stickers. And that's really what the first set was, for about 12 bucks on eBay. It's more about the nostalgia value for me, I think, than the money. And then we have the second series, which is the Victory series, and the third series is the Homecoming series. So Topps managed to stretch this 100-hour war into 3 whole card series. But Desert Storm was more. Remember, there's Desert Storm, and before that there was Desert Shield. They had Desert Shield cards also. So we are going to take a look at the cards, and we're gonna have a lot of doubles. I can't even guarantee that in this whole box we're gonna have a complete set, the whole 88 cards and 22 stickers. But we're gonna hope, and that in this box we have the whole series of cards and stickers here. But we'll hope. Before we actually get into looking at the cards, I want to talk a little bit about the background, of the whole thing, of what led us there. And we did this when we initially kind of looked at some of the cards before. But, you got to set the Wayback Machine for 1990, which, wow, That's a lot of years ago now. Desert Shield, Desert Storm started 33 years ago. And of course, to me, it feels like, might have been 5 years ago. I remember it so clearly growing up. My dad had a mysterious business trip in the middle of Desert Shield. My dad still held on to I believe then it was lieutenant colonel rank, working with Defense Intelligence Agency. So he got to participate in some squirrely stuff going on. Really cool. I should tell you some of my dad's stories sometimes. Blow your mind. Anyway, summer, August 1990, kind of on the heels of the big 10-year Iran-Iraq war, Iraq was broke, had loans to pay back to everybody to finance the war, and a lot of countries, United States included, in order to stand against Iran, backed Iraq, sold weapons, gave loans, and Kuwait backed Iraq. Kuwait would not forgive all loans. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars that Iraq took out, and this goes back way further to like the 40s when different countries were carved out basically by the British after World War II. And so, long story short, Iraq, which had a very strong military in the region, invaded Kuwait and said, for a number of reasons, Kuwait is now the missing province of Iraq. They belong to us. And contrary to what a lot of people believe, the United States did not just show up. The United States was asked by Saudi Arabia, listen, we believe that his next move, Saddam Hussein, is to come south and claim the oil fields in Saudi Arabia and invade us, and we don't have the technology or the standing to prevent that. So we are inviting the United States and anyone else who will come help to block that, to become a shield in the desert, if you will. And the United States said, yeah, we'll do that, because yes, it was self-serving our interests. Of course it was. Kuwait at the same time was also selling oil at disproportionately low prices, screwing over everybody in OPEC, but especially Iraq, who needed the oil revenue. So that's how Desert Storm began. And it was not just the United States. A lot of people, especially people who hate the United States, like to talk about United States putting troops on Muslim Holy Land in Saudi Arabia. We went nowhere near Mecca. We didn't. But it was not just the United States who answered the call from Saudi Arabia, come help. It was many nations. The UN voted on it. A lot of countries then said, listen, you need to get the hell out of Kuwait, because they were committing atrocities all across Kuwait as well. After 5 months of Desert Shield, and I gotta hand it to Saddam for being particularly stupid, of giving a world coalition of upwards of 27 nations, I think, 5 months to build up a fighting force that the world had not seen since World War II. 5 months of building up fighting forces throughout the Arabian Peninsula in terms of air forces, but then mounting over 1 million troops on his border. Then Operation Desert Storm began on January 17th. He was given a January 15th deadline, or maybe it was the 16th, I can't remember. But we gave him we gave him like a day past the deadline for him to think like, oh, they're cowards, they're not going in. And then, bam, we went in. But yeah, so pro tip to all you dictators out there, never give the entire world 5 months to mass forces right along your border. Doesn't work out well. So Desert Storm lasted for 42 total days. Most of that was one of the largest air campaigns anyone had ever seen since World War II, which just decimated his forces to where they were completely routed and surrendered after 100 hours of actual ground fighting. And when I say ground fighting, we steamrolled them. We completely, I mean, it was, I want to say ridiculous, but I'm not trying to make light of it. I mean, it was one of the most one-sided, lopsided victories in the history of warfare. It really was. So anyway, we could talk much more about Desert Storm, but it's one of my vivid memories of childhood, because it was also one of the first wars that was broadcast live. It was the first war broadcast live on air as it happened. And I remember being home when the news cut in, and the green tracer, the night vision tracers over Baghdad, like reaching up, they were actually shooting at the sounds of stealth fighters flying away after they had already dropped their bombs. They were just wildly shooting up in the air at whatever they could. It was a whole new era, because from that point on, war was entertainment. War was broadcast as it happened live. And little did I know, watching that, little seventh grade me, that just 11, 12 years later, I would find myself in a 24-hour live broadcast war myself in the same damn place. But there we go. Desert Storm, Desert Shield was kind of a turning point in this country, because we had been in the United States, in my country, this country. I know I've got folks from around the world, which makes me so happy, and I feel really honored that there are people that care about this crap all over the place. But, we had still, as a nation, we had still been suffering that Vietnam stigma. And militarily, and you guys can argue with me, militarily, we did not lose, the United States did not lose the conflict in Vietnam. Militarily, we crushed it. We did. And if you look at the stats on military action, we did. Politically and socially, we were crushed. Yeah, but in a military sense, if you look at the actual every battle, company size or larger, we absolutely won. It was on a political battlefield and a morale battlefield and a social battlefield that we lost that. So that was at a time where, the military was still seen as a career for people that couldn't do anything else. It was at a time where people were not very proud of the American soldier. And we had a few things in between. We had peacekeeping in Lebanon, which did not go well because the barracks were attacked and many Marines died by terrorism. But then we slowly started to come back in the 80s, We had some military events to punish terrorism, which were very successful. We had Operation Urgent Fury in Grenada, where we had to rescue American medical school students. And I'm just saying, I'm throwing this out there. If you're going to medical school in Grenada, you probably did not do very well to get accepted to any medical schools here, but that's neither here nor there. No, it's a fine school, St. George's Medical College. But we answered the call for help also, where there was a attempted communist whole takeover of the island of Grenada. And you know what? They sent 5,000 Cuban engineers, and we sent 50,000 troops from the Marines, the 82nd Airborne, 101st Airborne, and if you ever see the movie Heartbreak Ridge, love the movie, but everything that went on in that was was actually Army Rangers or Navy SEALs. That whole rescue mission to the college, that was an Army Ranger mission. Then we had Operation Just Cause in Panama. That was a military victory. We did well there, and then and then Desert Storm came, and we started to love our troops again. Was it propaganda by the Defense Department? Yeah, a lot of it was. But we started to regain being proud of our troops, and these cards came out of that. And all of a sudden there were yellow ribbons around everything supporting our troops, and instead of we came from that Vietnam era where people were spitting on troops and hating troops and wishing death on troops to like, hey, our boys are in harm's way. I say boys because this is before women were allowed in combat or anything like that. Okay? Women were in the military, but they were not allowed to deploy in the fight. And we really started to love our troops again. In fact, when they came home from Desert Storm, there was a giant ticker tape parade down Fifth Avenue in New York City, in Manhattan. And my home, where I went, where I could go and see these heroes. They were treated like heroes. One of the greatest renditions of the national anthem ever that I've heard in my life was Whitney Houston singing it for the Welcome Home Heroes concert. I get goosebumps right now thinking about her singing that song. It's a shame what happened to her, but man, it was amazing. When I was young and these cards came out, they were a big deal. We did love our troops. We did. And these were very popular with kids my age because the soldiers, just like in World War II, our soldiers were becoming our heroes again. And a lot of kids during that time were like, yeah, I want to grow up and join the military. I want to do that too. So this gave us something to, instead of just baseball cards, there were G.I. Joe cards when I was growing up around the same time. There were Transformer cards I remember, and Marvel superhero cards. And then there were the Desert Storm cards, the Desert Shield and Desert Storm cards, and these were real life heroes to us. Okay, enough of that. Let's take a look. So inside each of these, you got 9 cards. You got 8 trading cards, and then you got a sticker. And no disgusting piece of gum, thank God. So these are all, look, these are all from 1991. So these are over 30 years old, the cards in here. These are all unopened, which is really cool. Now again, they're not, it's not like I'm ripping open, like, I'm not getting a Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card or anything here, you know? There are actually different series printings of these cards too. So like this is the series 1, you know, the Coalition for Peace. But there are different, and you can tell what's on the back. So there's a white series they call the Tiffany series. This is the brown series. There's different printings of these, but in each one, so they're going to talk about people. 37th Field Artillery, that's our sticker here. It's a regimental crest. And these were the guys to bring the multiple launch rocket system into battle for the first time. And so your cards are all random. So we've got Phoenix missiles on the F-14. So that's the AIM-54 Phoenix, and that would be a C model. F-14 Tomcat. We'll talk more about the different systems on here. There's Sunset on the F-14. We've got the Patriot Missile Command Center. Well, that's not exactly the Patriot Missile Command Center. That's the phased array radar of the Patriot Missile. And that is, okay, whatever. Wearing the gas mask. Ooh, you'd get in so much trouble if you called that a gas mask. That is a pro mask. That's a protective mask. We don't call it a gas mask. And where are his filters? I don't know. That's an older M17. That's the kind I used in basic training, but then we because that's what we had. There's a newer version of that, but that is an old mask. State-of-the-art stealth fighter bomber, the F-117A Nighthawk, which was actually first used in combat in 1989 in Panama, which they used as a ruse, basically, but it became famous in Desert Storm. USS America, one of the last non-nuclear powered aircraft carriers we had in use. And we've got the Pentagon, which is home of the Department of Defense. This is one of the most bureaucratic bullshit places in the world. I'm so glad I never had to work there. I know people that did. It's just a hellhole. This is the Aegis Control Center. So Aegis is a system. It's an automatic air defense command and control system on board Aegis class cruisers. It's not an Aegis class cruiser. It's the Ticonderoga class cruisers that have the Aegis system, and then they fit the Aegis system onto I think Arleigh Burke class destroyers. But let me tell you something. This system is so incredible. It is it can take control of an entire battle group's air defense system and automatically identify the number of targets. I think is still a classified issue, and how many targets it can track and lock and target on, and how many specific missiles it can engage with at a single time. But like, so it goes out with a carrier battle group, and it's phased array radar that it works with. There's 2 different ones it could work with. Is so accurate and so it has a lot of jam resistant. Right? It's just an amazing system, and it can, so by ship-to-ship data link, it can actually take control of the air defense systems of all the ships in the carrier battle group, and basically go on automatic mode and defend them against aircraft, cruise missiles. I mean, it's amazing. The Aegis system is awesome, and it's continuously upgraded. So that's what we get in a package of cards. And then on the back, there's a little explanation, very fluff. Now, some of the complaints, some of the criticisms of these cards when they came out was that they weren't very accurate. And they're probably not. They're probably a little bit of propaganda, a little bit of fluff. And you know, they're made to entertain kids. There's a lot of stuff that was probably left out. For example, this is obviously not a picture taken during Desert Storm. This is a picture taken during training somewhere not at all in the desert. This is an older style helmet. This is a Vietnam era helmet. This is not the K-Pot, the Kevlar helmet that is modern issued. This is an older chemical warfare suit. This is, not the most accurate thing, but it does represent what they're trying to get across. This is not a picture taken in Saudi Arabia, where the Patriot missiles were stationed, or anywhere else for that matter. This is a picture taken in El Paso, where they were testing the Patriot missile at Fort Bliss. Accuracy aside, they're cool cards. Now, what I think I'm going to do is we're going to have to... Oh, they're all numbered, by the way. So we're going to have to go through all of these. And what I'm hoping is that we'll get a full set of 88, and then we can talk about each individual card as we go. And the backs of these stickers make like a portrait kind of thing. So what is our sticker? Oh, okay. It's the Desert Storm Coalition for Peace sticker. So what do we have in this pack? I'm going to try not to make this too boring. General Norman Schwarzkopf, he was the man on the ground. He was the Joint Forces Commander, the JFC. He was in charge of everything, and it was his battle plan that we executed. The Chinook CH-47, actually the fastest helicopter in the Army, believe it or not. We also call it the shithook. Not a very comfortable ride, but Apaches escorting the Chinook actually have to, the Chinook has to slow down sometimes and let the Apaches catch up. Very cool helicopter, still in service today. Here's a machine guns ready. This is not a machine gun. This is an Uzi. There were not a lot of Uzis used in Operation Desert Storm. It's not a frontline weapon. It's a submachine gun. They're talking about the M60 on the back of the card, and this is an Israeli submachine gun. So whatevs. SH-60B. So based on the Black Hawk, this is used at the time. They have many models later. This was used for anti-submarine warfare and search and rescue work by the Navy. Here's a heat storm in the Gulf. Sure. Chief of Staff, General Charles Gabriel. So you've all heard of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, right? So what that means, Joint Chiefs of Staff, is that the highest ranking officer in every service serves on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's the Chief of Staff of the Air Force at the time. He's the commander of the Air Force, basically. So every service has a representative on the Chief of Staff. Air Force, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, so the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, Chief of Naval Operations, that's the Navy Admiral, the Chief of Staff of the Army General. Now, there is not a Coast Guard representative in the Chief of Staffs, because the Coast Guard does not belong, it's a military branch, follow me on this, but it does not belong to the Department of Defense, because the Coast Guard has to be able to perform law enforcement duties inside the United States territory. And there's a provision of the Constitution that specifically says the U.S. military cannot do that. So the Coast Guard did belong to Department of Transportation, now it belongs to Department of Homeland Security. They are part of the armed forces. They're not a military branch. They're a branch of the armed forces. They're a uniformed service, but they are not part of the military for that specific reason. There is another officer, a fifth officer, who is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and he comes from whatever branch he's nominated. At this time, it was General Colin Powell. He is think of the Joint Chiefs as the board of directors, and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs is the chairman of the board. He's ultimately in charge of everything. So Scud missile, we were very afraid of these. We thought that maybe Saddam would shoot chemical weapons or biological weapons on his Scud missiles. We'll talk more about this as we go. And the F-15 fighter, undefeated in aerial combat, although it did, Japanese F-15 accidentally did shoot down another Japanese F-15 in training. The F-15 Eagle, an amazing air-to-air fighter, still used today, and we use it in a few different variants anyway. So far we got no doubles, so that's good. That's working well for us. Oh, the M1 Abrams. Now, at the time of Operation Desert Storm, we had two different versions of the Abrams. We had the M1, we actually had three, sorry. Well, we had four. See how it goes? We had the M1 Abrams, the original. We had the M1 IP. We had which was an M1 Abrams. The original M1 Abrams had its 105 millimeter gun. The M1 IP had the 105 millimeter gun and then additional upgrade in armor. Then the M1A1 had the 120 millimeter gun, the upgraded armor, and a couple additional changes. Then there was the M1A1HA, which stood for heavy armor, which had the 120 millimeter main gun, additional upgrades, and a heavier depleted uranium armor jacket around the frontal areas. And the versions, the M1A2s and the SEP versions, they are all based off of the M1A1HA. We had all of them in service, the M1s, the IPs, the M1A1s, and the HAs rolling in Desert Storm. The M1 was a fairly new tank in Desert Storm. It rolled out in the 80s, and the A1 variants were just starting to be fielded in deployable units. The HA was kind of brand new. In flight with A7s, the A7 Corsair II, Desert Storm was really its last big fight. It was a light attack plane that served with the Navy and then in the Air Force. The Air Force didn't use it in Desert Storm, but the Air Force has... Actually, yeah, the Air Force used it a little bit in Vietnam. Really cool plane, has some cool history to it. We'll talk about that. Here's another Patriot Control Center. These are radar screens. We can get to that later. Here's an M2 Bradley. It's not a tank. It is not a tank. It's an infantry fighting vehicle or a cavalry fighting vehicle. This is an early model Bradley. My time in Bradleys was spent in M3 versions, which is, I don't want to quibble over the details now. The M3 and the M2, mostly the same, little differences. One is for cavalry and scouting, and the other is for carrying infantry. But like I said, this is a very early version. We talk more about the Bradley later, but it's not a tank. Dick Cheney, Secretary of Defense, would later become Vice President Dick Cheney and shoot a dude in the face with a shotgun. And this is the only man who could go hunting with somebody, shoot him in the face with a shotgun, and have the dude who got shot apologize to him for getting in the way or something. But he was Secretary of Defense then. And scary individual. Scary individual. USS Iowa. This was the last armed conflict that we used actual battleships. This was the same USS Iowa that fought in World War II. Yeah. Launched cruise missile attacks to start the war and did some shelling of Kuwaiti beaches. And I can't believe we still use World War II era ships in Desert Storm. But we did. Oh, we got our first double. Here's Phoenix missiles on an F-14. So we can put that aside. And here is the Sidewinder missile. This is, see this blue tube? That's called a CATM, a Captive Air Training Missile. So this one has, this is an AIM-9M. This is the second most modern version of the Sidewinder. This has a, so this blue indicates to you that this is a dummy round. This can't fire, but it has a live seeker head, so they can load it up on an aircraft and use it for air combat training. It will lock on to something, but it can't fire off of it. It doesn't have a live warhead. That's what the big blue body means. Sidewinder has been around. The first Sidewinders were around since just before Vietnam. They were around in the very late 50s, early 60s, and we've been using them ever since. This is the 2nd Infantry. Do not touch me. This is called a regimental crest. This isn't the patch from the 2nd Infantry Division. 2nd Infantry Division's a different thing. This is a regimental crest. So there's different levels of organization. I'm not going to get into that now. The Commander-in-Chief, George Bush Sr. So he was the president, obviously, then. The Commander-in-Chief. The president is the Commander-in-Chief of the United States All-Armed Forces. That's what our Constitution says. We have a civilian commander. He served in the Navy in World War II, in case you didn't know. Tomahawk missile in flight. Tomahawk was originally designed as a nuclear cruise missile, but we used them with conventional warheads with great effect. We opened the war. The first war shots of Operation Desert Storm were fired by Air Force B-52s that flew nonstop, 36-hour mission. They took off from Louisiana to where they could fire Tomahawk missiles. Oh, I'm sorry, they didn't fire Tomahawk missiles. They fired air-launched cruise missiles, AGM-86s. And the Navy fired Tomahawks from the battleships and some other cruisers. But they fired these. So the first shots that actually went in were unmanned to take out important radar, early warning, command and control things, and then we could send the stealths in to take out some other stuff in downtown Baghdad, where we use these where we're less worried about collateral damage. The F-18 Hornet has an interesting story behind it, but we'll get to it. The F-18 is kind of like the Navy's F-16, kind of jack of all trades, master of none, multi-role fighter. This just says at the controls, and I'm not entirely sure what kind of aircraft this is, but it looks like a B-52 to me. This is about pilots being at the controls. It says mission accomplished. Okay, and talks a little bit about some of the coalition members on the back. We probably need more. Hummer land vehicle. Of course, the Hummer is a civilian version. We call it the Humvee, but it's the high mobility multi-purpose wheeled vehicle. Put those letters, HM, I have to spell it out. HMMWV is what it is. This is not one that we use very often in military service, this particular version. This was not the first combat use of the Humvee, though. That was actually Operation Just Cause in Panama, was when we really saw the Humvee roll out. But this was the first time the public really saw it in action. And it was used for what it was supposed to be for in Desert Storm, which was in a support role, not in a direct combat role, which is why they really didn't do well in Iraq and Afghanistan. They were never meant to be on the front lines. Here's another Scud missile, earlier version. We'll talk more about them. USS Ouellette. It's a frigate. Frigates are pretty good warships. They do a lot of anti-submarine work, and they also do a lot of air defense work to protect carrier groups and convoys and stuff. Here is the 6th Field Artillery Regiment. We don't have that one, do we? No, we have another one. Okay. The F-111 Aardvark is another plane. First, there's a whole story behind this, and a failed attempt to create a joint aircraft for the Navy and the Air Force. The Air Force needed a high-speed, low-level tactical bomber, and the Navy basically needed the F-14. And trying to create two planes that are complete diametric opposites did not work. The Navy ended up going off to develop the F-14. We got the F-111 that ended up being amazing at what it does. The Soviets totally copied it, made the Su-24 Fencer. But this started in Vietnam. First flew combat in Vietnam, very, very, developmentally, and ended up being an amazing precision bomber. And we used them to great success, and they performed very well in Vietnam, in Desert Storm, in Vietnam as well. This is ready in the cockpit, and I do believe that this is an A7 Corsair cockpit. I'm pretty sure, anyway. It is what it is. He's ready in the cockpit. It's a Stallion helicopter. So the Stallion is the CH/MH-53. It's one of the largest helicopters that we've ever used. I think it is the largest helicopter we ever used. The Marines used the CH-53 as a heavy lift helicopter. They also used, the Navy used the MH-53 Sea Dragon, which they used for it towed a thing in the water and cleared mines, anti-ship mines. The Air Force made a very specialized version called the MH-53 Pavlo, the MH-53J and M, and it was a special forces, special operations helicopter for combat search and rescue and to support special forces missions on the ground. And actually, so the first, I keep saying the first shots. So there were the cruise missile shots, but the actual manned first shots, two Air Force Pavlo 3s, the MH-53Js, led a flight of Army Apaches basically skimming the ground across the Iraqi border because of their advanced navigation stuff and like GPS. GPS was brand new then, remember, led the Apaches across the border, just skimming the ground, to a point where they could attack Iraqi early warning radars. They snuck in completely under the radar, and they knocked out these radars so that actual aircraft could fly in across the border. And at the same time, these cruise missiles were flying in for bigger targets. But Air Force led the way. Night vision goggles. These are so old. We loved, and this started, and you could tell this is old because of the Vietnam style helmet and the pickle suit. And that is the Army E4 specialist rank right there. We really pioneered a lot of night vision stuff in the United States. That's not to say other countries didn't have it, but we really enjoyed fighting at night because the Iraqis had no night capability. The only night vision capability they had was turning on a big floodlight, big flashlight on their tanks, and all we had to do was shoot at the lights and kill them. And we had night vision. Now, it was an earlier generation, but it still was pretty good, especially compared to nothing. So we learned over time. We learned from Vietnam. Own the night. And that's what we did. B-52, oh god, this guy's been flying since the 50s, and it's still flying today, and we have no plans to retire them. In fact, we are re-engineering them all. B-52 is an amazingly capable heavy bomber. We'll talk more about that. Quiet moment. Shh, it's quiet. The A-10 is an amazing airplane, and I will tell you, I could tell you all kinds of stuff about the A-10. It is very quiet, and the Iraqis actually called it whispering death because the way that its engines work, and they're based off a 737 engine. It's a high bypass turbofan, which means it just uses a lot of air compared to actual jet exhaust. It sucks in air and blows it out the back. You don't hear it if it's coming at you. You don't hear it until it's right on top of you, and it makes like a whistling sound. It is a very quiet airplane when it's attacking. And we could talk more about the A-10. The A-10 is death for everybody. Ready for takeoff. That's a Hornet on a carrier deck, obviously. Now, this would have been either an A+ or a C model at the time. Now we have the very advanced F-18E and F Super Hornets. And here is another picture of the F-117A Stealth. Stealth is a misnomer. Stealth implies it's completely invisible. No aircraft that we have ever made or ever will is completely invisible. It is hard to pick up. It is much harder to pick up. And we fly them in aspect ratios that maximize that low observable capability, but there is always a way to pick it up. We are trained and we know how to operate it and orient it to make sure that the bad guys never see it in that orientation where it is possible to pick it up. And when they can pick it up, it's tiny. It like has the radar cross section of a bird, you know? But I hate when people call it stealth, because it's low observable. That's why we call it LO. And here's the 506th Infantry Regiment crest. Motto, stand alone. Okay, so does this, anybody? 506, stand alone, anybody? Does that ring a bell to anybody? Let's see if anybody gets it. I hope this is not too boring. That's why I'm gonna do the opening the cards in this video, and then we'll go through the specific cards, and talk about the systems in another video. So this will probably be like a 4-video thing. Sunset on the F-14. There's another double. Okay. Admiral Frank Kelso, Chief of Naval Operations. So he was in charge of all the Navy stuff. Here's a French Mirage fighter. I can tell you specifically that's a French Mirage 2000. The French did some stuff. We even had Mirage 2000s flying over Afghanistan, and I'm pretty sure that all the bombs and weapons were hard welded and bolted onto those wings, because God knows they didn't drop a goddamn thing. But it's actually French are good at making weapons. They just don't use them themselves, I guess. They sell them to other people to do it. Here's some destroyers. Destroyers are always part of carrier battle groups. They protect the carriers close in from submarine threats. And here's the USS America again, so we got another double. And here's the Pentagon again. And here's Aegis Control. Good. Okay, doubles. And here is lining up the tanks. That's not a tank! That is an M109. It is not called a Paladin at this point. When we get the very fancy M109A6, we call that the Paladin. This is self-propelled 155 millimeter artillery, which was still very effective then. Now the modern one is just death on tracks with precision-guided munitions and full GPS, assisted targeting and all that. But the M109 back then was still very effective as it is. Not everything with tracks and a gun is a tank, people. And here's the 504th Infantry Regiment. Strike hold. What you might be noticing on these stickers is that there are certain colors that represent different branches. So notice the colors on the artillery stickers. And now notice the repeating colors on the infantry. Okay. Moving in. This is not a moving in. This is a like a public affairs display picture. This is just showing the carrier battle group and each type of airplane that flies off the carrier. But that's like a publicity shot right there. F-111 bombers. I think we already. I know we just. So that's yeah. Okay, that's a double. Okay, we can put that aside. And ready in the cockpit is and Stallion helicopter. And I'm glad to get doubles so we can move through them. But I swear to God, this is the same pack we just got. I just want to make sure we get all 88. And here's, 34th Armored, the strong arm for victory, 34th Armored Regiment. Now, just as a historical side note, the Army used to be organized in a regimental formations, regiments adding to divisions. Now we're in a brigade combat system, which is just different. Taking off in an F-18, I think that's a new one. So, the Hawk missile, the MIM-23 Hawk. Hawk stands for Homing All the Way Killer. I swear to God, they just pick names and then they're like, how can we turn this into an acronym? So the Hawk was and it served mostly with the Marines, but the Army had it and we sold it to other countries. It's a surface-to-air missile, homing all the way because it's what we call semi-active guidance. So there's an illuminator on the ground that shines a radar beam at the target, and this Hawk missile has a receiver, and it follows that radar beam. It homes in on the illuminator beam. We call it a continuous wave illumination. And as long as that continuous wave illuminator is locked onto that target, this missile theoretically cannot miss. Now, you can break lock on that illuminator, but I'm saying as long as that continuous wave illumination is on that target, this homes in on that and goes for it. And it's a chunky missile. It's got a big warhead. It's very effective. 73rd Armored Airborne Unit. Like, you'd think that maybe they could show dudes parachuting if that's what they were going to show, but there's an airborne unit. We have several airborne units in the military. And we have, of course, the 82nd Airborne Division. We have the 101st Air Assault Division. They still wear their airborne tab, but they're now an Air Assault Division. And we also have some smaller units like the 173rd Airborne Brigade. There's part of the 25th Infantry Division, which is the Tropic Lightning in Hawaii, but they actually have a brigade in Alaska that is an airborne brigade. So, and there's some other units here and there. There's airborne elements all over the place. Because it's very effective to have that capability. Here's the CH-53 Super Stallion. We talked about that before. It's Marines. Chinook again, and the machine gun card again, and Marine firefighters. And every unit, every branch with an aviation element needs to have firefighters, because anytime you have jet fuel and bombs, there's a chance of explosion and fires. And the AH-64 Apache, which, again, not its first combat debut, but the Apache was designed as a 1-2 punch with the A-10. And yes, the A-10 is excellent close air support, and that is one of its intended roles, but it was not designed. People say it's designed specifically for CAS. It was designed to kill tanks, which happens to make it very good at CAS. But it was designed alongside the Apache because the Warsaw Pact and Soviet Union, they had a 10-to-1 advantage on us in terms of armor in Europe. if World War III was going to happen, and they needed a tank killer, and that's what both of these were designed to do. Okay, cruise missile, F-18 awaits the fly at the controls. Here's another CH-53. Boy, these guys love Stallions. These are flares. These are self-protection measure to decoy infrared guided weapons like heat-seeking missiles, and they look pretty cool coming out. This is the power of the Tomahawk. Now, the Tomahawk's not a precision-guided weapon. It is fairly accurate. It uses inertial guidance. We'll talk about them more when we talk about the Tomahawk. But yeah, it blows stuff up. For the life of me, I don't remember if we already had this card. I know we had a couple with F-14s. I'm going to put it in there. And if it's a double, it's a double. And these are doubles. And here is the seal of the Department of the Navy. That's our sticker. Got that one. Here's the Patriot missile, the MIM-104. Patriot did get its combat debut in Desert Storm, and it got its debut early. It was not really ready to be fielded. They didn't think so. Well, side note, so it was fielded for things it wasn't really ready for. They were not ready to use it as an anti-ballistic missile system yet, but they said, look, we got the test software. We're going to go with it. It was originally intended just as a surface-to-air missile. And they figured out that they could use it to shoot down ballistic missiles like the Scud missile. And it works differently than some other missiles. It turns out to be great, and we still use it. And now we have different kinds of missiles and different kinds of radars to use it with, and we can talk more about that later too. This is preparing to jump. So this guy's doing a non-traditional exit. So what I'm talking about is he's not doing a regular static line airborne exit, tactical exit. This guy's doing a free fall jump because he's going out of the back of a C-130. So he's probably a squirrely type guy going out there to do stuff. You also tell by his helmet over there that, normally when regular airborne forces jump, just regular standard airborne combat troops, they're wearing all their regular combat gear. This is probably just a training thing too. He's not jumping into an operation or combat or anything. He doesn't have any actual gear besides his reserve chute and his main chute. But there he goes. A-10s in formation. We love them. Notice they're still wearing their Lizard, their European one. We call it camouflage, which they wore in Desert Storm. Patriot Control Center. Bradley tank, which it's not. Scary guy. Cobra copter. Basically, the first attack helicopter in the world was the AH-1 Cobra, which we developed during Vietnam. These flat panel ones, that's the AH-1S, flown by the Army. Lots of them. So the Apache was new. The Army still had the Cobra in frontline service and in a lot of National Guard units, and reserve too. So the Cobra did a lot of fighting in Desert Storm. Even though the Apache got all the hot press because it was new, the Army was still flying a whole lot of Cobras, and Cobras got a lot of action in Desert Storm. And this is United States Central Command. So there are geographical commands. The divisions are huge. So Central Command is a geographical joint command. Joint meaning more than one service. So Central Command still exists. Central Command has been responsible for operations in the Middle East for decades, and it's still up and running today. So Central Command has elements from all the four services. We call it CENTCOM. So CENTCOM is still an active command running right now with all the operations that are going on there. And I have a cool patch from my time over there. Canadian Air Force's CF-18. So Canada flies the F-18. They've been flying it as their primary aircraft for a long time, and they brought them to Desert Storm. Here's jumping, A-10s. Boy, they really like Patriots, and they really like Bradleys, and they really love Dick Cheney. Here's the Cobras, and there our sticker is the American flag. I really hope we end up getting all 88 cards. Here's Phoenix Missiles again. Here's the CNO. Here's a Mirage 2000. State-of-the-art stealth fighter. Dawn in the Desert. That's a new one, and that's a Bradley. Sitting in the desert. Okay. That's an old style one. In the desert, we also use we used everything from the Bradley, the original M2s and M3s, the M2A1s, in 3A1s, and the A2s. So we had like the whole gamut of the Bradley fighting vehicle there. Here's the view from above. Here's some F-14s. Dawn of the Dead. Wow, two identical cards in the same pack. Here's mission accomplished. And here is the 17th Cavalry Regiment. We got plenty of cards to go. Oh, this is a new one. Oh, no, it's not. In Flight with A7s, Dawn in the Desert, the Pentagon. Ooh, here's a checklist. It's a checklist card. I'll just put that aside. I wonder if this counts as a card. This is card number 88. Okay. Mission accomplished. Oh, back to back. Mission accomplished. View from above. They're getting lazy now. And what is this? The 8th Field Artillery. Daring and tenacious. We're doing really good. We haven't gotten a single double sticker there. We got another Sidewinder. And we got Phoenix Missiles. And we got Sunset on an F-14. And see, as we open more cards, it's more likely that we're going to get doubles. I think this whole package this is all doubles. But we've got the 503rd Infantry, the Rock. We're doing really good on our stickers. We got plenty of packs to go, so I feel like we're doing good. I think we might get all 88. Here's a new one. Britain's Tornado. That's a Harrier, not a Tornado. That is so obviously wrong. Wow. Okay, so that's a Harrier. I think that's probably a GR3 at this point. They have Harriers up to GR7. The Tornado is an entirely different plane. That is probably the most glaring inaccurate card possible. TOW, that's a BGM 71. TOW anti-tank gun. It's a wow, they're getting bad. The TOW is a missile, not a gun. TOW stands for Tube Launched Optically Tracked Wire Guided. For a long time, it was the most effective anti-tank missile in the world. And we've upgraded it for a long time. At this point, it's bulky. We've used it in Afghanistan, in Iraq. It's very bulky. It's very heavy. It has a lot of disadvantages compared to newer systems. It's still in the inventory, and it's still used on like the Bradley still carries it. I've seen that. So the unmounted version I've seen really reduced. We've replaced it with better systems, but in Desert Storm, it was kicking ass and taking names. F-15s, moving in, view from above, Dawn in the Desert. General Richard Graves. So this was the Army Chief of Staff during Desert Storm. And then Night Vision. And here's the Congressional Medal of Honor. It is not the Congressional Medal of Honor. It is the Medal of Honor. I don't know where the Congressional comes in. It really bugs me. It's just Medal of Honor. I don't know where the congressional part comes from. It does need to be voted on, but it's not awarded. It's not given from. It's not Congress's medal. It's not. But anyway, every branch has its own version. So I don't know if you've ever seen this, but the Medal of Honor is different whether it's awarded by the Army, Navy, Marines, and Navy get the same one, or Air Force. It's very interesting that each service has its own Medal of Honor. The USS Wisconsin, another battleship, big old battleship. Here's a helicopter formation. Those are UH-60 Blackhawks. Back then, we were using a few different versions from the A. And listen, I say the A to the L. It's not like we had versions all the way through there. There are lots that we skipped. But mid-air refueling. So I can tell you that just based on where that refueling probe is going, even without seeing that would be an F-15. So it's a KC-135 tanker, and it is refueling a flight of F-15s, probably on combat air patrol. Here we go, Colin Powell. So Colin Powell was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So he is ultimately responsible for everything that happens in the military. And he answers directly to the Secretary of Defense and the President at the same time. He will advise directly to the President and the Secretary of Defense. We got the Patriot missile again. We got preparing to jump. In flight with A7s and Wild Blue Yonder. Wild Blue Yonder. Hang on, let me take a look at these F-16s real quick. That's a Navy. That's what I thought. It was a Navy F-16, and Wild Blue Yonder refers to the Air Force song. But I guess they're not using it like that. So these are Navy aircraft at Top Gun at Fighter Weapons School. That's an A4 Skyhawk. They're aggressor aircraft. It has nothing to do with Desert Storm, but there you go. And this is the 48th Infantry Dragoons. Ooh. Oh, we got a duplicate sticker. But this is what Puzzle A will look like. Collect all 10 cards. I don't mind having a double of this sticker. Anti-aircraft chemical gear. Okay. Sure. Pilot's eye view. Now that's VF-84. VF-84, the Jolly Rogers, they would end up, that squadron would be retired, and VF-103 would pick up their livery, the Skull and Bones. One of the most famous, I'm trying to get it real good. One of the most famous Navy squadrons. USS Iowa. I think we had the USS Iowa before. The amazing AV-8B Harrier. So the Harrier was originally a British plane, Hawker Siddeley Harrier, that they collaborated with McDonnell Douglas to make a more robust aircraft. McDonnell Douglas took their original design and turned it into the AV-8A and then the AV-8B, which is only now being retired. And the AV-8B got some modifications, finally got a radar late in its career. But the Harrier, is famous for being the first production jet to get, vertical takeoff and landing capability. And it has served very well with the Marines. The only U.S. service to use it is the U.S. Marine Corps. It also flew with Spain and someone else. I can't remember who. But the British have really kept refining this thing into the Harrier, like I said, GR Mark 7. But the Marines have loved their Harriers, and they have flown them off amphibious assault ships to support Marine operations, and they flew them in Afghanistan a lot and Iraq and Desert Storm. Carrier plane at night, that's an E-2 Hawkeye. That's like the Navy's version of the AWACS. It's little, but it does very well. And here's Wings Over Egypt, which I'm pretty sure this is a Bright Star exercise, not actual Desert Storm, but okay. And we saw these two already. I did a little count off camera just now. We got 76 of the cards, so we're doing really good. We got 76, and we have basically we got a whole half a box to go. So I feel like we're definitely going to get all 88 cards, and we might even be able to put 2 full sets together. And if we do, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to send a full set to Craig because he bought the box. And if we have 3 sets, I'm going to give away the 3rd set to a subscriber on the channel. But we're in really good shape to maybe get a full, even 2 full sets of these 88 cards. Can't guarantee the stickers, but we're going to keep going. All right, Aegis Control Center, Commander-in-Chief, Tomahawks in flight, F-18, at the controls, mission accomplished. Oh, I see something I love. 75th Infantry of their own accord, also in Latin, sua sponte. You might not recognize the 75th Infantry Regiment, but you would if I told you it's the 75th Rangers. Technically, their on-paper title is the 75th Light Infantry, but they're also known as the 75th Ranger Regiment. And this is their regimental crest. Their Latin motto, sua sponte, translates to of their own accord. And that's pretty cool. All right, so that was a whole pack of doubles. I shouldn't have opened my mouth and tempted the demon saying I think we're going to make it. Destroyers. Okay, manning the M110. So we don't use the M110 anymore. We had, in terms of self-propelled artillery, we used to have the M108, which was a 105 millimeter. We had the M109, which I showed you before, 155, which we still use, and the M110. The M110 was a monster. The reason we don't use it anymore is because it was very expensive to maintain. The rounds were very big and heavy, and it's a 203 millimeter gun. And really, with technology, we're able to do more with the 155 millimeter gun in terms of accuracy. The M110 was just overkill, and we don't need it. It's a cost saving thing. We can do more with the advanced technology and accuracy of the M109 than we don't need to keep this larger gun in service. But it's cool looking. I love it. Here's the Phoenix missile, the AIM-54. This is one of the first active guided radar missiles in the world, which means it has its own radar in the nose, which means once you lock up the target and fire it and it knows where it's going, the launch aircraft can turn around and go away. It was also a very long-range missile. And I don't care what you see on the internet about Russian long-range active missiles, the Phoenix is still one of the top best missiles. Unfortunately, it was only designed to work with the radar in the F-14. And you can't just throw a missile onto an airplane and say, like, okay, go. There's a very specific link between a missile and the radar it's designed to work with. So, Sunset on the Desert. That's an air traffic control radar, not a tactical radar. Commander-in-Chief, the Sentry, and E3A. We are now up to the E3G, by the way. I have a love-hate relationship with this airplane. It breaks so much. So my last assignment in the Air Force was training the crew members in here that are going to be directing the fight, that are going to be calling in the strikes, directing the intercepts. That's what I did at Tyndall in the 337th Air Control Squadron. Unfortunately, we'll talk about it later when we go over the actual things. But the command and control, that's what, and I've said this before, we have great weapons technology, we have great troops, but the ability to command and control better than anyone else, putting our assets where they need to be, when they need to be there, we do better than anybody else in the world. And that, as much as the weapons and technology and training, is what lets us win. It's like playing chess. When you can make a move your opponent can't counter, that's when you win. And that, anyway, USS Midway, that's an old-ass aircraft carrier. And UH-1 Huey Navy Bell? I don't know what the hell that means. What? All right, I guess it's... All right, so the UH-1 Huey is built by Bell Helicopter, and this is one serving in the Navy, I guess, is what they're saying. The UH-1, this helicopter became synonymous with the Vietnam War. It served all the way through up till it was still serving in Desert Storm. It was replaced by the Black Hawk, but the UH-1s are still serving around the world. The Huey. It's the helicopter that gave us the sound, bop, 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 to mean a helicopter. And it's because of the sound of these two rotor blades cutting through the air. We'll do more about that later. And here's the 62nd Air Defense Artillery. We aim at high things. That's a dumb motto, but there you go. Mission accomplished. Hummer land vehicle, Scud A, F-14 flies informations, the Olet, taking off in an F-14, Hawk missile. We got one more. It's another checklist, but we have the 320th Field Artillery, willing and able. Schwartzy Dortzy, the Chinook, the machine gun, the Seahawk, General Gabriel, the Scud B, the F-15, and moving in, and the Air Force emblem. Okay, that's cool. Getting more and more doubles as we go here, guys. Hawk, checklist, Schwartz, Storm and Norman, the Shithook, machine guns, Seahawk, Heat Storm in the Gulf, and Gabriel. And the 41st Field Artillery. Their motto is mission accomplished. You want to do your mission first? Another Scud, another Eagle, another moving in, F-111s, ready in the cockpit, Stallion helicopter, night vision, B-52, and 37th, we already got that one. I just want to finish at least one set. Another quiet moment, another ready for takeoff, another F-117, Canadians, preparing to jump, A-10s in formation, Patriot Control Center, M2 Bradley not a tank, and the Field Artillery guys. He'll shoot you in the face with a shotgun, Cobras, Sidewinder, Phoenix on a Tomcat, Sunset on a Tomcat, Admiral Kelso, Surrender Monkeys, Stealth, 73rd Armored. Old S Carrier, bunch of bureaucracy, awesome air defense, not a tank, flies go boom, Hornet everywhere, flying a plane, nice flares, it's not congressional. Missile blow stuff up, Tomcats in a 3, it's a weird name for a ship, takeoff, fly hawk fly, checklist, he's a big bear, shitty helicopter, 40th Infantry. Okay, see, I shouldn't have tempted fate. I just really hope that we get all 88. Owl ship, takeoff, stupid acronym. They don't look like they're jumping. Green helicopter, Shithook helicopter, not a machine gun. Marines putting out a fire, 2nd Infantry. Killer helicopter, not a tornado, big bulky missile, shoots you down. Publicity, missile, Eagle, same thing, already got it. Aardvarks, he's flying, it's a helicopter, old ass picture, cool bomber, quiet, shut up and take off, not really stealth, it's the Navy. We know it's Patriot. You're just training. Nice flying. Nothing on your screen. You're not a tank. Please don't shoot me in the face. Get it, you're an old helicopter. You're just a training round. 41st. Never want to go there. Got it, Sunset. Still flying your bombers. Dawn, not a tank. General Graves, old ass night vision, old ass bomber, formation helicopters, that thing. Flying gas station, dude in charge, shoot down some scuds, jump out of your plane, stay in formation. Navy, don't really know. Skull and Bones, 34th. Cobras everywhere. Marines. Planes at night. Got a new one! Paratroopers in flight! Army supply ship. Bet you didn't know that the Army has a lot of ships. The Army has ships and the Air Force has ships too. And so these are... Okay, so these are actually Marine vehicles. But Marine tanks and stuff. But the Army has ships. We already saw the airborne unit. And here's Norman Schwarzkopf again, but here's a machine gunner, and he is firing an M60. And one of my most embarrassing moments in basic training, or Central Command again, happened on the M60 course, where I told this story before. But my drill sergeant Morales, was from Brooklyn and had a very thick Puerto Rican accent. And he said, you will fire a 6 to 9 round burst. 6 to 9. I got my Kevlar helmet on, which covers your ears, and it's, and he's yelling, and I'm on the far end of the firing line. So, of course, I heard, you will fire a 69 round burst. So, everybody's doing their... And I heard, you will fire a 69 round burst. So what did I do? Trying to count to 69 in my head until I started feeling rocks hitting the top of my helmet. And yeah, it was not a good day. Not a good day for me. You never want to fire 69 straight rounds out of an M60. EA-6B Prowler, this guy, and this is still flying in Afghanistan. They've only recently just retired it for the EA-18G Growler. This guy does a lot of cool electronic warfare stuff. We'll talk about him. Marine firefighters and the heat storm in a Gulf, and Gabriel and the Scud, and the F-18 cockpit. Tanks take a stronghold. Now these are old, but they could be not American, because Marine tanks in Desert Storm had reactive armor on them, so I don't know. Here's a view from above, and this is our last pack, so I'm really hoping that after this is done, we actually have 88 cards in that pile. We'll have to count. Double. Ooh, satellite dish. All right, that's it. Let me count. I went over every single card and I put them all in order, and would you believe it, we are missing one single card for a complete set. We are missing card number 27. We have one complete set minus card number 27. So in the intervening time, I went on to eBay and I found card number 27 for $1.49, and I ordered it. So we will have one complete set. Unfortunately, what I really wanted to do was hopefully we would have more than one complete set. We're going to have probably another set minus 5 or 6 cards. And I might be able to put together, another set. What I'd really like to do is at least send Craig one complete set since he sent the boxes, and I think I could put it together another set pretty easily. And then maybe, depending on how many cards we have left over, like I said, give away a set to somebody. But we're going to have one complete set so that we can go over in depth the cards and talk about, the systems that were in Desert Storm. Like, we're not going to have to go over everything. Like, there's like 4 different cards of F-18 Hornets. There's like 3 or 4 cards of F-14, stuff like that. But just talk about the weapon systems that were in Desert Storm and how they've evolved or how they've gone away or why they went away or whatever. But this has been cool. So I should have that missing card in about a week, and then we can really go over stuff. But this was really nostalgic to go over these. They definitely have that baseball card smell. Unfortunately, I don't think I got all 22 stickers either. I haven't checked all of them yet. But I'm pretty sure we didn't get all 22 stickers, because I don't think we can put together the whole puzzle. There's more than one puzzle here. But I don't know. We'll do that for a later date. As it turns out, though, we do have a full set of stickers, because what I did not realize was that what I thought was a second American flag was actually the last sticker in the bunch. The American flag is both number 1 and number 22. So we do in fact have all the stickers in the set. Which is pretty cool. So we do have a complete set of stickers. So that's nice to know. So I don't know if anybody actually enjoyed this. I enjoyed going over it. And like I said, we'll do an in-depth look at all the things on the cards at a later date. We still have to do the unboxing of Series 2. And I'm going to try to get my hands on a full box of Series 3 cards as well. I don't know. Card number 88, of course, is the checklist. So I'm thrilled to know what your comments on this kind of video is. For me, this is going back to my youth, to when I was like, what, 11 or 12 years old. And I don't know, it's just kind of fun. And then to see what kind of stuff they put on here, because some of it's just inane stupidity, some of it's kind of cool. So what did you guys think of this? And is anybody actually excited to see the one where we go over the military stuff on it? Yeah. So anyway, I'm glad. I'm sure one or two people actually stuck with me through this video, and I appreciate that. And thanks to Craig for sending these over. And I'm going to do my best to build some more complete sets out of this if I can find the missing cards. I'm sure I can. It's just going to take a while. But I really do. Please tell me your opinions on this. If you have memories of these cards, or if you're just, maybe you didn't even know they exist, but you think it's kind of cool and you're interested in them now, or whatever. Or if you're the kind of person who would like to win a giveaway where I give a set of these cards away. I don't know. Tell me what you think. So anyway, thanks guys. Hope this was fun, and we'll be back to do another unboxing of the other set and to go over the actual cards and the military stuff in a military type way real soon. And remember that you guys are all absolutely awesome, and I appreciate every single one of you. And I'll be back again real soon.